Yeah,
The pictures I've seen of your little avatar and everything, when you popped up on the screen, there's a lot more grey than those pictures.
dude, this is COVID-19. When you're in your house with all of your kids and your wife in lockdown, the gray shoots up, right? Because you're just trying not to get thrown out by the tribe, right? Because you know they can just overthrow and throw you out of the house. And then on top of that, you can't do any jiu-jitsu, so you can't strangle people, you can't sit on people, no throwing of people onto the mat, so your stress levels go up, and in my case it comes out immediately.
In my case it falls out immediately. Look.
Well, you and Peter have a technique that I'm looking to invest in, just removing all follicles to prevent people from identifying the pain you feel.
Pete actually removes. I don't have any need to remove anymore. It just happens.
Oh, that's fresh. That's when your jiu-jitsu is next level. Your body's starting to take care of you.
That's what I'm hoping for, Rondel. That's what I'm hoping for. One day it will catch up.
Okay, cool. I'll press record. We're live on YouTube now, so I'll press record on here. So we've got the audio version as well. Cool. We're good to go.
Did you have a professional introduction for Rondel, Pete?
I've given up on my professional introductions. I think we're just going to roll with it now. There's too many. We were discussing earlier, Rondel, about how we are not the polished podcast. We are just we just go. And
we're just guys. We flow with the go. We don't go with the flow.
We tap, we bump, we roll. So in that spirit, Rondel, thank you for taking time out of your day and talking to us. We've not met you face to face before, but like I said before the live stream happened, we've heard lots about you from Mike when he's been in the UK. Fascinating to hear about your school over in Trinidad and Tobago. I think there's some big differences. Am I right in thinking that your school doesn't have walls? Maybe one of your schools is like open air, right?
Yep, we've had open air schools. We've had outdoor schools. We've done beach sessions. We like to get outside into the sun as much as we can. You know, grab the mats, head out to what you would call a park, a savannah, and train. We are at, I think, where Gracie Jiu Jitsu was maybe 50 years ago in Brazil.
Wow.
We are the first generation of Gracie Jiu Jitsu in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have the first ever black belt in Trinidad and Tobago who trained in Trinidad from scratch. I am that person. It's taken me 23 years of doing jiu-jitsu to get there. So when I hear guys complaining, oh, you know, I've been training 12 years and I don't have a black belt, I just have a wee chuckle, right? I'm like, you're not serious. You know, you don't know what it is to use Black Belt magazine to figure out how to do a guillotine choke. You know, that's where we came from. And then we had VHS. And then we were able to, you know, travel. And then I remember the first time I ever went to the Budokai in London. Hodger Gracie was still running classes there, right? And he's like, where are you from? I'm like, from Trinidad. What belt do you have? I said, well, I have a white belt. And he let me roll with him. And I stopped counting on the 49th tap. I'm serious. But I'll tell you this, when I went back home, I knew so much more, right? And it's been a journey in creating as much opportunity to get as much information and bring it back home.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that there's things that I'll never be able to experience because of my journey, but that the students and the generations to come are going to be so much richer for it, because some of the older ones, myself, Coach Gail, Chris, we were willing to take the bite of getting the information to bring it home. And I'm sure you guys know that feeling when you're like the first or second generation, and you're looking at the guys who are coming up behind you and saying, I wish I had me when I was you. And it was tough because in the beginning, I got caught in that thought that I had to get as many techniques as possible. And it's only when we ran into Master Sauer that we realized if I have grasp of the key concepts of jiu-jitsu, the techniques come on their own. And that it sets up this natural technique filter where I realize, oh, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, because I understand these things. And the 6 things that really created this framework for thinking that we use down here is the 3 main concepts of Grandmaster Elio, which is leverage, self-defense mindset, and natural biomechanics. And then when you combine that with connection from Grandmaster Hickson, which is part of the Pedro Sauer movement, because he's in our line. And then you add those magical concepts that Master Sauer has, which is mechanics and self-protection, the mindset of always being consistently responsible for what's happening when you engage in another. And that you are the person who's going to control whether you get hurt or not. That stuff, you know, I wish 23 years ago I knew that, because my journey would have been much shorter. And then I'm one of those lucky people that I spent 10 days with the Valente brothers doing their instructor development program. And so I got a sense of that old school self-defense mindset. And when that's added to the innovative approach that Master Sauer has to self-defense, and I was joking with a buddy of mine, I suspect when you have to train with guys like the Mark Schultzes of the world.
Oh, we're losing him now. You still with us, Rondel?
We got that in. We got the international internet freeze.
We'll wait for Rondel to catch back up with us. I'm sure he'll join back in a second.
This is an unprecedented time, Bill.
This is our first time.
No, it is. And we need to
put podcast.
Your cards with the questions on. We can ask each other.
No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
I haven't got the cards with me, so I can't come up with them. I will ask Rondel when he comes back on, but I'm completely blown away. I don't think I've ever met anybody that can claim to have tapped Roger Gracie 49 times.
I bet there's a few.
I need to ask him more about that.
That's good to see. Yeah, Dave's watching.
Yeah, Dave's watching.
Hey. Oh, here we go. We've got Rondel back again. I'll log him back in again. He's joining. Here we go.
He's doing some music.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Again.
That's island life, right?
I was just saying to the guys, Rondel, my mind's blown. I can't believe that I'm talking to somebody that tapped Roger Gracie 49 times in one roll.
Oh no, that was me, dude. You know, people talk about what mastery is like, and like you roll with somebody like Mike Horian, or you roll with Hodger, one of those guys, and you just feel like a baby. You feel so powerless, so like useless. You know, and I'm like, yo, what's going on here? Why am I so lame?
It's scary, right? I mean, I remember rolling with Mike, and I just felt like I was being like steamrolled. Nothing was happening fast at all, but every single move that I made, I just felt like I was getting crushed a tiny bit more and more and more.
Did he hit you what we call in the island lanit? There's this move Mike does, right? Now there's a poison we use in the Caribbean to kill weeds called lanit. It kills everything. It's the most deadly poison for like plants and weeds and crap. He goes into close guard, and then he does this sweep. It's like a kind of helicopter sweep, kind of like a pendulum, a cross kind of hook pendulum sweep. And he swept me for the first 45 minutes we ever rolled. Like every minute, the same exact sweep once. And I'm like, like, why is this happening? And he had to teach me how to stop him from sweeping me. It's horrible. That's Mike.
I just feel like he's a sandbag that everywhere you move, he kind of fills the space. You make a little move, and then
He's already there.
yeah, he's already there. And then you think, okay, that's all right, because I'll move. Oh no, he's already there. And I'm going to move this. No, he's there as well. Like he fills the space that you're going to move into really well.
Yeah, I really enjoy having him as my direct teacher because sometimes, like Michael Jordan is hard to understand if you don't have the Phil Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Master Sauer is so high level sometimes. Like when we go to Master Sauer seminars, I know I don't get about 90% of what he's saying. Not because he's complicated. He's like the best teacher I've ever seen. I'm just not at that level. Like, and I need somebody to dilute it,
Yeah.
and break it up in a way that my little old brain can process. And that's what I feel Mike did for me. He helped me be able to understand how powerful the material that Master Sauer has is. Because sometimes in Master Sauer's delivery, you can miss the mastery level. Because his delivery style is so smooth and so fun, and the stories are so amazing that the minute accuracy in his mechanic, and that's why I said the concept of mechanic. Like there's this thing, the Z post. We call it Z posting, where he's on his back, but his toes are live in a way that allows you at all times to access leverage.
Yeah.
And that little thing, or how they do what we call the gully creep, which is the shoulder rolling upper. So not only are you only uppering, but you're traveling along the length of your spine. And those small mechanics, or the classic one, the hitchhike, where he sweeps you, but then halfway in the sleep, Master Sauer just holds on and he just rides to the end of it. Those things you don't really see in other jiu-jitsu programs, or they're not articulated the way he articulates it, but they make a drastic difference in how you can understand jiu-jitsu and how beautiful jiu-jitsu becomes, because it's driven by mechanic and concepts and not physical attributes.
Yeah, no, I can understand completely where you're coming from. It's beautiful to watch, right? If you're ever lucky enough to see Master Sauer and Master Sauer roll as well, it's just effortless. And where I think to myself, oh yeah, if I tried to do that, I'd need to do 2 or 3 more steps in between. He just glides, he floats to the best positions ever. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that thing you just said there is something I've recognized. Like, we have perfect positions. So when we're taught the armbar, we're taught all the perfect positions and the bridges to the perfect position. So even when I'm in a position, I can feel very quickly, oh, this doesn't feel right. And so we have this experiential pedagogy, this method where how it feels is very, very important. It's even more important in a way than how it looks. Because my body will never look like Pete's body or Robin's body or your body, because we just don't have the same body. But once we're taught what feels right and what works, then we just have to look for that feeling. And I was a big, strong lad. I started doing jiu-jitsu. So I'm 6 feet 1 inch, 280, 270 pounds. And that's why the logo is a silverback, right? I'm a big dude. And what I hated about some of the other jiu-jitsu I did, because I was in was in another association, was I felt like jiu-jitsu was built for little guys. And all the things about me as a big guy were targeted as bad. You're being too strong, you're being too heavy, you're using too much pressure. But in this association, I never heard those things, right? It's like, use your connection and your leverage. And if that means that you're heavy, good, that's fine. Use your biomechanic to eat all that space up and travel through it. And that's when I felt, oh, being big is good. Crush all small people to death, and then let them use their technique to address your technique. Because part of your technique is that ability to connect and be heavy and flowful and move. And a guy told me once, he's like, dude, you're like a silverback. I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want them to feel death pressure.
I love it. I love it. Sorry, Rob, go on, you were going to say?
Yeah, mission accomplished. I think what you were saying about having to learn by the kind of the feel and by the touch, that's the problem that we've really got at the moment when we're not allowed to touch each other. You know?
Yes, it's huge.
A lot of martial arts used to be something else, but it's so much more difficult because it is all learned by feel.
Well, one of the things that is very helpful to us, because we do remote learning, is that we have very clear mechanics in our association. So when you're on your back, you're never on your back. You're at an angle, and your feet are in a very particular position. And our feet, one foot is what we call a Z post, which I got from Mike, and the other foot is in a kickstand position. And I can look at all my students, whether they're drilling at home, and I'm looking for those cues. And those cues are like reference points. And those reference points can lead to road mapping transition. And because we have mechanical cues, I'm like, for example, somebody's on their back and they're at home, it's a couple. And I tell the wife, okay, put all your weight on your husband's shoulder. And if he's on his back in that defensive posture we have, and you can make his top shoulder touch the ground, then his feet aren't in the right position. And then we can get him to keep playing with his feet until he finds that position where she can put all her weight on his shoulder and he doesn't move. And I know other associations call it invisible jiu-jitsu. But for me, it's not invisible. It's just the mechanic is hard to see if you're not taught to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like learning by feel, and obviously there's some bits there that you can learn by watching. But one of the things, Rondel, I wanted to ask you, and I think it links to one of your other martial arts. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Kalinda.
Yes, Kalinda.
The stick fighting. I was fascinated. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it was talking about the way that you learn by the beats of the drums and the sounds. And I just wondered whether or not you've ever played with teaching jiu-jitsu, but with sounds as well. Because I know that you like to try different ways of teaching.
I have suspicions, right? And that's why, one of these days after corner Master Sauer, we did have an initial conversation. Grandmaster Elio Gracie spent a lot of his time fighting capoeiristas. When you look at Gracie Jiu Jitsu striking syllabus, because a lot of people don't know Gracie Jiu Jitsu did have a striking syllabus. There's a whole bunch of kicks. They are capoeira kicks. They're not like karate kicks, right? Yeah. There's the martello. There's the kick where you're on your back and you do like an estobrado and you do like a roundhouse kick. You'll see in a lot of the early Vale Todo, you'll see the movement. It means that they interacted with this pedagogical model a lot. And there's a certain sense and rhythm and timing. I saw a video in the early days where somebody was like, Hoist, how do you improve your jiu-jitsu? And Hoist had told them, well, you have to learn samba, you have to learn to move your hips. And he said, jogo de cintura, which is the hip game. And and there is a musicality, and we do practice the music. Like, I'm a big believer in creating this sensory space when you're doing jiu-jitsu that allows you to alter your state and learn in the altered state. And one of the easiest ways to alter state is through music. And because Brazilians are Brazilian, they wouldn't have to do that consciously. That would be their culture.
Mhm.
So Holes and Hickson and those guys already have other spaces where that information is being passed on. But
Right.
it's deeply embedded in the jiu-jitsu. But sometimes, like Jordan, right? Jordan couldn't articulate everything Jordan did. You would have to look at the environment Jordan was in. And his environment would give you a lot of cues to what really he was doing. Because some of his stuff is subconscious. And that's one of the things I feel strongly about. I feel strongly that there's a musical movement. If you want another classic example, look at some of the early gymnastica stuff. And you'll see they have a whole set of movement and rhythm and a sense of timing that is being passed into the system by an alternate pathway. Like when Professor Mike Diaz was doing his online gymnastica classes, and one of the drills he did, which if you look at the early Hickson seminars, they would be mirror drills where they would almost be dancing opposite each other and asking the other one to follow. I don't know if you all saw that when Mike did the gymnastica,
Yeah.
but it's reaction based.
Yep.
That's dancing. And so we do a lot of stuff like that because I still believe, I'm a big believer in what built the fluidity and technique of Grandmaster Pedro Sauer is some stuff in the Vale Todo syllabus where they would do drills where I would have a belt and I'd be swinging the belt, and your job is to time the swing of the belt to enter. So when they teach entry to T position, there's a rhythmic component, and when you learn that from the Vale Todo side, and then you go to pure jiu-jitsu, the rhythmic sense of timing for entry stays. We still do a lot in Trinidad of the open hand stuff. So in the middle of a drill, guys are rolling, we might just shout out, okay, whoever's on top can slap. And it changes the perception and the rhythm and the timing. And when somebody's trying to slap you, your sense of when to upa is different than when you're not trying to be slapped.
Yeah.
And you have to feel their body to time the upa, because when you don't do it right, you're gonna get right.
But it kind of makes it easier, right, to upa when somebody's trying to slap you, because you know you use their energy to be able to exploit that and you know
And that's the trick, learning to use their energy. And then once you have that sense of where their body is, then you're gonna always wait for it, because you no longer want to upa against their strength.
Yeah.
Once somebody's tried to slap you and you've timed the upa where it's like magic, it's like butter. You're like, oh, you could do that? You can actually upa this dude and not use any strength? Shucks, then I don't need to use strength anymore. And it's super cool how those elements of what we do and our heritage as like a old school Gracie school, that hardline heritage we have access to, changes the way we engage in jiu-jitsu. You know, when I look at how our guys do close guard, we still teach the Vale Todo close guard.
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes people not seeing that that's what it is. And recently when Master Sauer did a Q&A, we sent a question, Mike put it out, where Greg Nelson and Master Sauer were talking about how they train. And I don't know if you all have ever met like Dan Berry and Johnny One Eye, Jim Kelly. Those guys are like, I pay attention to pedagogy, right? So if I want to know who Peter is, I don't look at Peter. I find Peter's oldest student, not his newest student, because if Peter's been teaching 20 years, he's gotten older, right? The students who know the most are when Peter's like just around 45. He's still bad enough to be bad, but wise enough to be wise. those students are the ones who really carry the line. Then when Peter's 60, he's a little bit more relaxed, right? So the students that he has when he's 60 aren't the same as when he was 45. And when you spend time around James Gardner, Mike Diaz came to Trinidad. When you hang with those guys, Mike Horahan, Jim Kelly, those guys, it's scary how good they are and how they're seniors. Some of them are in their 60s now, and they're like scary, dude. And so that's part of what excites me about our community, that we have access to, because you can imagine what it was like being in Utah, which is probably the home of American wrestling, and constantly having to prove your jiu-jitsu against probably one of the most athletic, best base, hardest to sweep cultures in the world, and having that crucible change jiu-jitsu. And that's what we've inherited. Master Sauer's jiu-jitsu had an additional layer of hardening that I think a lot of guys don't appreciate. And that's why, for example, if you look at UFC coaches, our association has some of the most successful Vale Todo coaches in the history of UFC. And it's like we have, I think, one of the largest contingent of successful coaches. You have guys like Jeff Curran, Rylan Lazar, guys,
Rondel.
Greg Nelson, and the list is actually much deeper than that.
We were with the only name that we've actually met, firsthand in all of that is Mike Diaz, and we were fortunate enough to be able to sit down and talk with him last week. After the chat, we were saying similar things to you, Rondel. What would it have been like to have been around those, in Utah at the time when all of those people were training, and how on earth do we try and recreate that environment where as instructors and as students actually we can progress. And I don't know that we'll ever be able to progress as much as they did, but to try and get close to what they were able to achieve.
I mean, we're lucky in that we have a very strong fundamental program that the association designed. We call it the 1 to 25. And once we enter the open rank, we literally have the benefit of being able to call any of them. You can just call Greg Nelson in the morning. Say, Greg, we're looking to work on strike base for 3 months. Mike, we want to work on mobility and rhythm and timing and fluidity. One of the things we have, and I'm lucky in that, I'm stupid enough to just think I could talk to anybody, just call them up and ask them and expect them to answer, right? And it blew my mind. They answer you. They'll say, well, right, do this, do this, do this, do this. Look out for this. Call me back in 5 weeks. When Master Sauer, his first seminar I went to in Virginia, where he calls all his black belts into a circle, and he tells somebody throw out a technique, and then he tells all his black belts, attack the technique mentally, dismantle it, rebuild it, show me your version of it. And I was like, I came for him to teach, but he's teaching by committee. Why would he do that? Then I realized, oh my God, he's using an open source learning model that allows continued innovation, continued access to the oldest information, because he knows, I know this about any master. You forget sometimes your own mastery. And your students remind you, remember, Peter, when you do this, this always works. And you're like, yeah, that's what I do. I know I do that. And I think that's the benefit of the culture he's created. The teaching and learning culture is absolutely open. And anybody can access any of his guys. And he has guys that are so world class. It's frightening how good they are. And they each have specialities. And it's literally, you just like, I'll just call up Mike. Mike, I want to know this. Call this guy. Mike, I need help with this. I'll talk to Master Sauer and I'll get back to you. And that's the power I think of what we have, and I think it's having the courage to hold, because between YouTube, BJJ fanatics, online training accessible by a bunch of mundial champions, it's very easy to become distracted. It's very easy to not say, I know I can call Mike Diaz. And though Mike Diaz didn't win the latest ADCC, it does not invalidate his 20 years of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he may actually know better technique. I'll use a really horrible example. The world will kind of hate on me, but I'll do it anyway. I was watching somebody who I love. I love Gary Tonan's jiu-jitsu, right?
Mhm.
And I was looking at him doing a mount escape. And he had ballerina feet. And I was like, but using his feet aren't right. And I was like, I was second guessing myself. And then I said, no, it's okay that you're in Master Sauer's association and you can pick up and guys who could beat you. They're much better than I am. But I can still pick up technical errors, not because I'm good, but because I have access to minds that are that good. And I'm having more and more confidence because of the plethora of online access. I'm able to look at other guys who are world-class technique and then compare it to what I'm able to access here and recognize, yeah, there's many good types of jiu-jitsu and there's many different types of jiu-jitsu. And it's okay to have confidence in the type of jiu-jitsu you're studying because it's pressure tested in a very particular way. And it's unbroken in a very particular way. And it's been tested in a way that's unique among jiu-jitsu programs. Because very few jiu-jitsu programs had to face Mark Schultz's quality of wrestling for years, right? And to be smaller than those guys and not be able to speak English and still be able to function in those spaces and to win those kinds of guys over. And that's what Master Sauer did. And so more and more, the older I get, is the confidence I'm starting to have in it doesn't have to be IBJJF world champion to mean that the information you have access to is as good, sometimes better, and that's okay too, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that. Do you think because you obviously very much appreciate what because you've seen other jiu-jitsu and learned jiu-jitsu from other people as well outside of the association, so you kind of get the difference. Do you ever get to, or do you ever find that you have to explain that to your students, like, look what you're getting, you don't realize what you're getting? You don't, how do you think we pass that on to like the next generation, the guys that come up under you and all those other instructors that maybe haven't trained anywhere else and so don't necessarily know the difference? Like, that's something that I kind of think about quite a lot.
I'm super lucky in that the three coaches that really built Gracie Jiu Jitsu Trinidad and Tobago, one of them was the first ever crew Muay Thai coach, certified Muay Thai coach in Trinidad. That's Christian Ali. The other guy is like a national MMA coach, national Taekwondo coach, 5th degree in karate. I was the national Sambo coach. I carried teams to world championships. We've seen international high-level competition. We have guys who actively are competing in IMMAF world championships in our school. We compete regularly against wrestlers, Sambo practitioners, jiu-jitsu practitioners, judo practitioners. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as a Trinidadian saying. It's very easy for us to say, no, don't ask us, ask the guys who compete in right now. They'll tell you our stuff works because they're winning. And they're not winning with great complexity and super fancy technique. They're just doing this old school, boring jiu-jitsu, and they're doing very, very well. And that's one side. The other side is, I think that the teaching model we have allows us to test. So if somebody, because Master Sauer, when you go to one of his seminars in Virginia, you literally can say, anybody can ask him, I've seen this on YouTube, how do you beat it? And he'll say, well, show me. And then you'll put it on him, and then he'll escape. And then you say, no, try, really try. Show me this foot lock, this leg lock. I've never seen a worm guard, but show me. And I've been to, like, the last 6 years, I've been to Virginia every summer camp. And every time they bring the latest cutting edge ninja, gorilla, monkey guard, I watch him apply concepts and solve it. And so it's given me the confidence as an instructor to tell my guys, anything you see anywhere, bring it to the table, try it on me, and let's figure it out together. Because I think that's really important. I don't have the answer, but Master Sauer's concepts and the size of our community allows us to solve any problem if we ask the right people. If I can't solve it, then I'll ask Coach Gil or Coach Chris. If they can't solve it, we are the insistent instructors. If not, we call Mike. If Mike will call. You know what I mean? It's like, I am super confident that there's no problem in Jiu-Jitsu we can't get the solution to, because of our size, the concept and principle-based learning systems we have, and the fact that we're very open. Anything that is useful or works, Master Sauer adopts. Like, there's no closed-mindedness in our community's approach to Jiu-Jitsu. You know, if it's cool and it works, good, fine, let's go, guys. And you know, that's Master Sauer. That's, to me, my impression of it. And I'm super grateful because I've been in other circles that are very close. And this way is the only way. And if you don't do it exactly like I say, it's bad. We don't have that culture. We have a culture where bring it to the table. You like rubber guard, bring it. Put the rubber guard on there and let's apply concepts. Let's look at the principles of good jiu-jitsu and let's see how it works and how it doesn't work. And we take that information and we continually move forward, where we are applying fundamental concepts, our understanding of the fundamentals. Because jiu-jitsu is kind of simple, right? You're either gonna be attacking, defending, repositioning, or disconnecting. That's all you could do. And again, that's conceptual, but that's Master Sauer, right? And it's super simple. If you're applying a submission, there's only like 4 places. It's gonna be a limb, there's 2 arms, 2 legs, neck, spine. That's it. You know, it's our formulas can be very precise because the variables, believe it or not, though they're expansive, are limited. Like, we have forward facing feet. Our feet don't face backward, right? So it's what it is. The body is very, very specific in how it works. And if you apply pressure in the right spaces, you know, stuff like to win a fight, there's like 4 or 5 ways. The guy's gonna submit, you're gonna create dysfunction. If he doesn't submit or you don't create dysfunction, you can make him yield mentally. Some people just yield to pressure. Or you can terminate function. That's it. The 5th way is unconsciousness. And that's it. I break a limb, I make you quit. I cut off pneumatic supply, no air, you're unconscious. I bounce your brain around inside your skull, you go unconscious, or I cut off blood supply, your brain shuts down. And because
So,
we have a system, yeah.
and I was going to say, you mentioned, you know, I don't know if it was when we started recording or just before, but you said about, you know, you stopped thinking in, you know, trying to collect lots and lots of techniques and you started to think more about the concepts. But when you're, you know, so like, you know, you're standing at the start of a match, you know, you grip up and away you go. I've heard you talk before about, you know, right, I'm just going to take them to the ground no matter how. are you still like when you're connected and when you're like, you know, thinking about taking him to the ground, are you still like searching for the technique, or are you literally just, I've got the right grips
No,
now, you know, we're going to the ground, you know, whatever. When does
to
it
me,
switch for you?
standing jiu-jitsu and ground jiu-jitsu is exactly the same. The first thing I have to do is make connection.
Hmm.
How do I make connection? Grip. Once I have grip, what's the next step? Right? After ensure that I'm in the right posture and get them in the wrong posture. After grip and posture, what's next? I need to ensure that I'm connected. Once I have connection, I can generate leverage. Once I can generate leverage, I'm gonna break their balance or break my balance. Somebody's balance can break. And once balance is broken, we're gonna fall. But it's the same exact thing on the ground. It's the same thing when you're passing guard. It's like, and that's the benefit of having conceptually based learning. Like throwing or submission, it's not really different. The orientation is different, but all these steps are the same, and it's 5 or 6 steps. Um, and it is super simple step. If I have no grip on you, I can't throw you. So I hold on to you. If I hold on to you and I'm in a good position, I have good posture,
Yeah.
then you can't throw me. And I'll
Do you-
move you around till you don't have good posture. Once your posture is broken and I connect to you, you're gonna fall. And so for us, we're just trying to apply, because when you look at Gracie Jiu Jitsu, there's 5 areas of study, right? There's strike-based Jiu Jitsu, there's clinch and throw-based Jiu Jitsu, there's ground fighting with strikes, there's ground fighting without strikes, and then there's just philosophy. That's how Grandmaster Elio set it up, right? We spend time working in all 5 areas, but we're applying Gracie Jiu Jitsu in 5 areas.
So to apply those concepts then, Rondel, for you, I mean, is it a case that you have to drill like the different techniques, the different moves, so that they just come naturally to you when you're trying, to connect, or when you're trying to, move your body so that you can get better leverage? Have
I
you
actually
ever,
don't
or
believe in drilling.
maybe a different question, but similar thing that I'm thinking is,
I don't believe in repetitive drilling. If you look at like a lot of the best guys in jiu-jitsu, they do what they call situational rolling. So let's use the Navy SEALs. If the Navy SEALs are gonna hit a building, they build a mock of the building, and then they just keep trying to find different ways with different scenarios to solve the problem. So once you understand the basic concept, then we're gonna put you in different situations around that concept. And those different situations do the teaching. So we make it real. We put a guy's back against the wall and we show him how to keep base. Then we say, all right, bad guy, use leg attacks to take him down, wrestling. Then we say, bad guy, use judo attacks to take him down while his back is against the wall. Then we say, all right, bad guy, punch him while he's against the wall. And each of those different scenarios will inform base, so that base becomes a living concept where the base is constantly adjusting to the stimulus. And that's what you really want to learn. You don't want to learn the supposedly repetitive response to the stimulus. You want to learn to adapt to whatever stimulus that's coming and adjust it. And for me, jiu-jitsu is really about constantly being able to adjust. So that's what you're really teaching. So right, we teach T position. But once we teach T position, there's like 5 or 6 different forward, back, left, right. And if you look at the throws in our basic fundamental program, forward throw is the hip throw, back throw is the leg hook throw, or the sit down throw. The guy steps sideways, you hook the leg. If the guy steps into your pommel and change to the side. So now we have 4 directions and we have the T position. And then all we tell our bad guy to do is don't only go forward or backward or left or right or squat down. Just constantly try any different one. And the guy in T position has to constantly read the pressure and adjust and try to solve the equation. So for me, and that's old style Gracie. If you look at like the master text, people think the master text is like 100 techniques, when the master text is like 5 or 6 areas of study with options in that area. The attackers in the front, these are all the options. And then if you look at like how Hickson drills it or Master Sauer, once you know 4 or 5 of the responses, I let the bad guy just start cycling through those 4 or 5, really random. And you'll see Henan, they call it pressure testing drills. Because they know that there's only so much you can get from repetitive drilling.
Yeah.
You have to go to a dynamic environment where you're forced to solve the problem in real time.
No, I really enjoyed listening to you talk about that. It's, you know, it's insightful. I was going to ask though, have you ever found yourself in a position where you haven't got a response, where you don't have an answer?
I think if you're doing good training and you have good training partners, you'll constantly be there.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. My training partners are guys who live, like really live. And if you're around guys who've been bouncers or street fighters, guys who live and had rough lives, then they'll constantly be able to put you in positions that you can't plan for. And I think that's what training's supposed to be. So when you look at the Gracies tying their hands and rolling, or blindfolding themselves and rolling, or like because I'm bigger, I have a bad guard, because I can always put guys on their back and I can always pass. So when I was in my brown belt phase, I said, Mike, that sucks. He says, well, okay, take 2 tennis balls, hold a tennis ball in each hand and play guard. Right? So there's always ways, and that's why I think there's 2 guys who stand out. Hickson got good training with white and blue belt when he was in the States, right? He wasn't in Brazil anymore, but he kept getting better. And his whole understanding of connection didn't happen in Brazil, it happened in the States. And Hodger got good when he was in London, training with white belts and blue belts. And Braulio Steamer won a world championship training with white belts and blue belts. And when I listened to their interviews, I figured out, what they do is they force themselves constantly into positions where all the people in the space have all the advantages and they're continually disadvantaged. And the disadvantage helps them acquire the ability to spontaneously solve problems. And that's what makes them really good, because their perceptive speed, not their physical reaction, is where they're like next level. Because you talk to anybody who trains with Hickson and they're like, he's reading your mind, because he's able to perceive shifts in balance, because he's forced himself to be in positions where my hands are tied, my feet are tied, and 2 students are trying to choke. I have 1 student doing a leg lock and 1 student doing an arm bar. Now I have to escape. And when you listen to like Master Sauer and those guys and Greg Nelson, you start hearing that these are the stories. They would put themselves constantly in, and then there's an additional layer that we don't have access to, right? Where if you're training in an environment where at any minute anybody could walk through the door at any time and say, I don't think you know what you know. Prove it. The urgency you train with different, right? When we now started off in Trinidad, maybe 10 years ago, it was still kind of like that. So I've experienced dojo storming, and I know that that feeling is a drastic stimulus in developing. So, there's ways where you can experience dojo storming, where you can allow your senior students at a random time to say X word, and they get to blindfold you and you have to defend yourself for 5 minutes. Like, randomize the training in a way that's safe, but that keeps you uncomfortable psychologically, physically, and emotionally. And that discomfort forces the organism to continually try to protect itself. And so in Trinidad, we're still kind of crazy.
I heard you say something that the reason part of being excited to talk to you was that you said something that completely rang bells with me about competing and you wanting to throw or take down to pass rather than necessarily having to just pass guard, and that you thought how important you thought takedown was, and that actually that's, you know, as soon as they've seen you do a couple of takedowns, everyone sits down on their butt and doesn't want to stand anymore and doesn't want to play anymore. And that's kind of been my experience coming from a judo beginning.
Yeah.
You step on the mat to compete, and as soon as you grip up with your first guy, everyone then sees it, or they feel how relaxed you are standing, and everyone then sits down, and the sort of the frustration of having to deal with everyone just sitting down.
Well,
How much are you guys training with your, well, it's probably two parts, but how much are you guys training with your throws still, and how much do you feel like, because I feel like jiu-jitsu really helped me understand judo. From all that stuff you were just saying, it really rang bells to me. I suddenly went, oh, that no one explained judo to me in a conceptual way.
Correct, because judo is now taught very technique repetitive because of the competition nature of the present expression of judo. For competition, you need razor sharp technique, right? So there is a kind of clause in what I'm saying. If you want to be the best in the world at judo, at jiu-jitsu, it's probably best to learn 3 techniques and just have them so razor sharp that it doesn't matter if the other person knows what you're doing or not. They just can't stop it. But that's a very limited, injury-prone pathway that diminishes development over time. And you're gonna run into somebody who those 3 won't work with, and then you're done, right? In my case, we train throws and takedowns, which is a combination of wrestling and judo, once a week for 2 hours. So we have three classes: Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Saturday evening, there's a 2-hour block that's not a class, which is just different, either situational based drilling, rolling, some kind of situational based sparring, something, or sometimes we still do weapon based sparring, where 5 of the guys have knives and 2 have guns, and they're doing normal jiu-jitsu, and then I might just buy a weapon, and then they pull out the gun and let's see what guys do, right? So that stuff happens. But then on the Sunday, we have a 2-hour class that's strictly about throwing, takedown, because there's like 3 ways to pass the guard. You can pass the guard the jiu-jitsu way, which is very simple. If you get gripped, you change your angle, collapse barriers, control the armpit to hip space, and connect to the spine, you pass. That's all you have to do to pass. It's like, those are the steps. The next way is I can pass by submission. If I have your ankle or I have a kimura grip, and the risk of the submission is so high that you can't pay attention to putting your legs between us, I'm passed. I can pass by throwing. If I hold on to you and I project you, and while you're landing, I manage your landing so that your legs are not between us, I'm passed, right? Those are like the 3 main ways. I'm starting to feel there's a 4th way, which is what the guys who are pulling guard to pass are doing. You can literally pull guard and invert, and it'll induce a moment where one of the people can't really manage the 3-dimensional relationship. They get confused for a second and they lose kind of control of their limbs. That's how berimbolo and that stuff is working. When I invert the guy, we're both upside down and we're all tangled up. The guy who best knows the pathway ends up on top. So that's the 4th way that is very clearly a successful way. And then there's, if you're talking vale todo, there's passing by striking. And then that's it. So there's literally 5 different ways to pass. And I think my guys have to know all 5. It's very critical for me because we still live in an environment that some people deem third world, but it means that my guys still need self-defense. You know, I hear a lot of guys in like the States saying, oh, I'll never get in a street fight, so why do I need that stuff? I don't know about that stuff. I live in a place where it can jump off. And if it jumps off, like if I was living in the UK now, because the UK and Trinidad are very culturally similar, because we were a British colony at one point, right? Guys carry knives. And if I was in the UK right now, you know, 20% of my jiu-jitsu would be knife defense. There's too many stabbings. And the time to figure out how to apply a jiu-jitsu when the guy has a knife isn't when the guy pulls the knife. So yeah, if you know my guys were gonna do boxing and in the middle of the boxing I'll ball knife. I'll pull out a knife. Now let me see you go. You know, we're doing rolling and I'll just say knife. And then I mean it's amazing to see how exceptional high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners go to mush when there's a little stick in the hand. They just right? But it's the cognitive override that occurs because their brain isn't prepared for stimulus that they fear. And so that's part of it. You know, you have to just get your guys used to stimulus that's unexpected in the space. And when you talk to a lot of the old school guys, you know, Grandmaster Elio was that kind of dude. Stuff would just happen in the middle of class. And to have fidelity to the culture of the system is as important as having fidelity to the syllabus for me. And I'm super lucky that the fraternity we have in Trinidad are all cool with those ideas. And
do you introduce those ideas with all of your students? So regardless of grade, everybody gets the same. Yeah.
From day one, we have, and I guess again, I think I'm like one of the luckiest dudes in the world, right? In that, you know, when they taught me and the other instructors, there's three of us who are certified in the what they call the fundamentals of our system, you know, lessons 1 to 25. In lessons 1 to 25, there's weapons.
Yeah.
And Mike's structure of once you finish 1 to 25, you're allowed to enter open rank training. My white belts are invited to open rank. Now I tell them in open rank, I'm teaching the higher rank. If you want to be in the class, feel free. So I don't stop white belts from coming to advanced classes. I just attend to the advanced ranks more. Whatever the white belt gets, he gets. What he doesn't get, he doesn't get. You know, because when I'm teaching the fundamental classes, I'm focusing on the white belts. Open rank is for the open rank. But all our students are allowed to go to both classes. We don't segregate it that way. And if we're working, we have 3 month areas of study. 3 months leg lock or 3 months leg lock defense. 3 months weapons, 3 months weapon defense. Because it takes about 3 months. If we're teaching guard passing, we're also teaching guard retention. Because we teach opposing skills. So that one guy is doing guard retention while the other guy is passing. You know, if we're teaching takedown, we're teaching takedown defense at the same time. And we just every 3 months we cycle. And I'm super excited. I've seen such growth and confidence in the student body in short periods of time. And I've had guys come to me and they literally like, you know, Benji, I don't watch YouTube anymore. I didn't stop you from doing it. You know, yeah, but you know, there's enough here to keep us occupied. You know, and I encourage guys to look at stuff, but I think they pick up really quickly, really early. You can't watch everything. You have to attend to what you want to attend to, and you know, we have to keep it real, keep it effective. I actually, believe it or not, I like perambolos. I like inversion because when I do an inversion at 250 pounds, it's very confusing, right? You're like, the fat guy's doing the inversion. How's he doing that? Because I'm just very flexible. But that's my personal jiu-jitsu. That's what I consider fun jiu-jitsu. For me, that's not fundamental jiu-jitsu. And it's not an area where I necessarily want to spend 3 months teaching a guy to go into a position that he anatomically can't attain. And the cost to attain it to his cervical spine is too high. I was like, that's not making sense to me. I can do it, but that doesn't mean necessarily because I can do it. It's it's syllabus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We've got guys that are saying there's things that a couple of them, Sean in particular, can do because he's one of our guys that's super flexible that I'm not doing.
No.
But
And
that's
I'm
cool.
45 now, so I mean, I know soon I'm just not gonna do some of that stuff. Just yeah, I've had enough of that. But I can do it. You know, I was doing leg locks since 1995 because the first system I studied outside of Trinidad was Sambo. I'm an old Sambo guy, so I like leg locks. In Trinidad, we teach leg locks from jump because we have a lot of experience with leg locks and what to teach and what not to teach and how to create a culture where leg locks are safe. And I don't want guys like the white belts aren't allowed to apply them, but the blue belts can apply leg locks on the white belt. The blue belts are safe and they won't hurt the white belts because in our school, you know, Master Sauer 101, if you hurt somebody, it's your fault. If you want that toe hold so bad and he doesn't want to tap and you're scared to let go of the toe hold and move on, you're in the wrong school and the wrong system. If I have you in a perfect armbar and you just don't want to tap and I'm scared to let go of the armbar because I'm frustrated and I have to break your arm, I'm not doing jiu-jitsu. I'm doing something else, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, senior guys apply, junior guys learn defense. And it creates a really nice culture, super safe. Um, by us, you don't get brownie points for hurting people, and like we have a no badass requirement. Like we don't need killers. If you're a killer and you want to be a killer, there's tons of places for you to go.
So Rondel, you mentioned the six concepts from Elio Gracie, and then the Hickson, and then the Master Sauer ones added on top of that. Am I right in thinking you came into the Master Sauer Association around 2007, something like that?
Yes.
Obviously, there was a lot of jiu-jitsu before you came into the association. So, I mean, and this seems like your home, like it should be, because it's a wonderful place. But how much of the jiu-jitsu from before do you wish you knew what you know now, so that it will make you last longer on the mats, or because I remember you saying something about you come from like a fighting family, or a heritage of like a long history of
Yeah, I
fighting.
mean,
And
just to give you all an example, I'm what's in Trinidad called American. So the Americans came from these military units that fought in the U.S. Civil War in the 1818. They were freed slaves. They weren't freed. They revolted and they started fighting against the Americans as guerrilla units. And when the war of the Civil War was done and the Americans got freed from the British, part of the deal was they told the British, take these 6 companies and keep them. Just don't leave them here. We don't want no part of them. So they sent them to Canada, and Canada said, we don't want them. So they tried to send them to Liberia, and Africa said, no, no, no. They're too crazy. So they sent them all to Trinidad, right? And they, in the 1800s, they were free, had land, were warlike and aggressive, right? And so they were like this little weird pocket where the culture is extremely martial. And that's my family, right? And we fight full contact, no equipment, no PPE, stick fighting. I know guys who taught me full contact, blade fighting, no equipment, and those were this is what you do. My kids I'll hand them sticks now, and they'll just be fighting in the yard as like a game. Um, so that's the cultural background from which I'm from. And then the first word I ever said was fighting. And I've been doing martial arts for 34 years. And I'm 45, right? And literally, I've never stopped training a single day of my life. Every single day I do something.
so So the Master Sauer kind of approach to, you know, the longevity on the mats, and you know all of your movements are, you know, you should be protecting yourself. You know, do you wish you'd learned that earlier? Because it sounds like you've had quite a full-on hardcore kind of existence.
What jiu-jitsu's cost me? You notice my hand, right?
Yeah.
I'm missing a finger, ACLs, PCLs torn. I have like 3 discs that they're no longer discs in my back. That's from Sambo days, like no disc. Right? I had sciatica. I couldn't walk for 3 months. It busted my head, broke my arm, tore up my legs. If I knew Master Sauer, my body would be pristine. I'd never get hurt. Because then I would know that self-protection thing he talks about. I realize people don't get what he's really saying.
Yeah.
He's a guy who destroyed both of his shoulders and has pins in both of his shoulders, yet can roll with people up to 200 pounds heavier than him and doesn't get hurt. Right? So his conversation and self-protection didn't come from, I've always been this way.
Learn the
Right?
hard way.
Right. And so some of us have learned the hard way that it's not worth it. Some of it's not worth it. I have 3 kids. I don't need my son to do what I've done to myself to be able to do what I do now.
Yeah.
I don't need it. It doesn't make sense. You know, when I get off from the bed in the morning and it takes me 3 minutes to warm up, just to walk to the kitchen, it's not worth it. And when I was because I was in Alliance in Venezuela, you know, some of those training sessions, my fingers, you would know this, Peter, from judo. Like, you literally can't close your hand. And like, I have to go to work. I used to work in the oil field. So I have to go on the rig and I can't close my hand. And my whole job is using my hands to do my job. So I can't work. It's not worth it. It doesn't make any sense. And I remember asking Mike, you know, Mike, what do you guys do in Pedro Sauer to protect your hands? He says, if you're holding onto their gi and they're fighting, let them go. Like, what do you mean let them go? Why are you holding on to it? Are you scared? Is your jiu-jitsu not good enough that if you don't have the death grip, you still can't function? Like, is this possible that I could do jiu-jitsu and not like have the death grip till all my fingers have semi-arthritis and they're all inflamed? Like, if the guy wants you to let go, just let go. I have enough jiu-jitsu that I'll be fine. And those are the things that, you know, I hope younger jiu-jitsu practitioners realize. Like, there's so much space and so much technique and so much time and so many concepts of self-protection that literally, if you know jiu-jitsu well, there's not much somebody can do to you. And that's, I think, when people talk about the survival mindset and you hear about, you know, Grandmaster Elio at 92 training, that's how. He knew how to defend himself without using a lot of his resources and putting himself in positions of risk. He knew how to protect himself. And if I do that long enough and you don't know those concepts, you're going to gash yourself out. And then when you gash yourself out, it's my turn. And when it's my turn, I'm not going to miss.
That's the happiest face. That's the happiest face I've seen you pull there. Look at
yeah. All those young bucks, you know, they're 18 years old and they just saw UFC 245 and they just come into the gym and they're like, oh, this guy has gray hair. Oh, he's slow and old. You know, and about 15 minutes in, right, they're just beating on you for 15 minutes and you're just shrimping and relaxing and focusing on your breath and staying aligned and protecting your fingers. And then you see this glimmer in their eye of deep panic. And then they really go after you because you know this is their last hurrah. You know, they've reached empty. Just before empty, they go berserk, right? And you're just smiling because you know after berserk is my turn. And here's what happens every time. After they go berserk and it's my turn, when I sweep them and I go to mount, they tap immediately. No, like, don't tap. It's my turn. I get to go crazy. No, you've won. You know, it's the great power of jiu-jitsu. You're like, oh, if I only knew this when I was that strong. Oh, I'd have been a killer.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I promise you that Trinidad and Tobago is now on my my wish list of places to go. You've sold it to me, and I want to make sure I pay you a visit at some stage.
Oh, we'd love to have you guys come down, but just make sure and get your swim on, right? Because what I love to do is carry guys out to swim, and
Mhm.
just people teach breath work from a place that doesn't have a space to test. So they'll do like breath of fire, and then they'll do the Hickson breathing, but there's no place to check if your internal state is like in the right spot, right? But I carry guys out because I'm a free diving instructor too. We do the breath work, and then I tell you, right, go down 10 feet and hold a rock. And it creates a safe space where you can figure out how to manage your internal resources and stay super calm. Then when you're on the mat and a guy has a cross choke on, you're like, this is not a problem. Not a problem. So yeah, get your swimming on, come down. We'll do some breathing, some swimming, some jiu-jitsu. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
That sounds very good right now. We're all missing it big time.
We're wondering whether or not we're ever going to be allowed to travel again at the moment.
And we'll be fine. One of the things that you all saw the podcast with John Jack and Master Sauer.
Hmm.
I left that podcast feeling better.
Yeah.
Because you ever seen guys who've been there and done it, and they're not worried about retention. They're not worried about whether jiu-jitsu will ever happen again. They're not worried about. They're talking about we're a community, and we'll take care of each other, and we'll keep each other safe, and we'll take care of the family of our family, and we'll get through this because we've gotten through everything else. Like that, I dig that. You know, I dig talking to you guys because I know if you're in an airport in the Caribbean and you need anything, you know, hey, Benji, I'm in Jamaica, I'm having a problem, or Benji, I'm in Trinidad, you know, and I know, like, that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu. There's anywhere I go, and we don't need dojos to do jiu-jitsu, like,
Okay.
and our students will always be the people who we are most responsible to, because they aren't our students because of the money. They are students because they believe in us. You know, not even in the information, you know, they believe in us. And when we do Zoom classes, sometimes the class is about how are you handling COVID with your kids? How are you explaining COVID to your family? What are you scared about? Like that's jiu-jitsu too, right? And we're in a space among a community who thinks like that, you know, like Master Sauer. I'm seeing him on Facebook fixing his car or cutting grass with his wife during COVID. I'm like, yeah, that's how you do that. You know, that's what we're about. And it's really cool to be in a fraternity that still has a kind of code, you know. The Valente brothers keep talking about the 753 code.
Yeah.
Because it's a nice way to articulate what we know we do. You know, we have honor. We operate in a place where equanimity is like a really big deal. Like you can't be freaking out on the mat just because somebody has a choke on, you know. So we are in a culture that teaches, you know, motion, that mental state of flow. We live flow. And so yeah, those are the big things for me right now to keep reinforcing our values and our codes and our community. And we have doctors in our school, we have first aid dudes, we have dudes who really smart, and they explain to those of us who are not so smart what we need to do and how we need to, you know, do different stuff. And yeah, so I'm pretty stoked that COVID has taught me a new space to apply jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I mean, without the COVID situation, I don't think we would have got this podcast started. It's been something that they're talking about for many years, but it's never happened. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking forward to the Friday night podcast because we're getting to talk to some fantastic people. And like the fire for jiu-jitsu is getting stronger and stronger just because of all of these little insights and these lessons that, you know, people like yourself, Rondel, are willing to share. So yeah, thank you.
No, it's really cool, man. And you know, I really appreciate, you know, whatever I could do to share the little bit I've received. And when, you know, when talking to you guys, I'm feeling, yeah, feeling that family feeling.
No, definitely.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's perfect spot to stop and let you go. And again, like Bill said, thank you, my man. Thank you so much for jumping on and talking to, you know, our guys. Watch this kind of live on YouTube, and then some of them will listen to it back on iTunes and stuff. So cool. And if anyone sort of wants to look up your academy or whatever, how do they kind of look it up, see what you guys are doing?
Gracie Jiu Jitsu, Trinidad and Tabago. We're super easy to find, and everybody's welcome. You know, Pedro Sauer family is like family. You know, just come down. We'll do our best to take care of you as much as we can and hang out and, you know, make sure you know the island. Make sure and Google carefully Trinidad and Tabago Carnival. I strongly suspect it will guide the time of year you choose to visit. And yeah, I'll leave that little surprise for those of you all who don't know about Trinidad and Tobago, especially UK guys. Though, you know, you all have direct flights with Virgin to Tobago, and Tobago is like a wonder of the world in terms of the coral reefs and the beaches and stuff. So yeah, just check us out. We have your back, and looking forward to seeing some of you guys down here.
Awesome.
On the wish list now, Rondel. I'm
mate.
looking now.
Thanks so much. Cool. Have a great what is it, day for you? Or you got the evening? Or?
Well, it's 5:30 here, so I'm gonna hang out with the kids, try to cook something really cool, and just enjoy the sunset. So big ups, big love. See you guys soon.
Take
Thanks,
care,
mate.
Rondel. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Hi guys.